Okay.
Hi, everyone. I'm Niknaz, and I'm so excited to welcome you to another AEC+tech Talk hosted by AEC+tech Platform. AEC+tech Platform is a website and a community-driven database of the latest and greatest tools and technologies in the architecture, engineering, and construction space. Today's conversation is going to be about generative AI and how it's reshaping real estate from early planning and programming to design and development. We are joined by three incredible AEC tech innovators and leaders who are rethinking how we create spaces using smart and intuitive tools. So each of the platforms we'll hear about today focuses on optimizing a specific part of the planning and design process. And I'm really looking forward, and I'm sure you as well, are looking forward to learning how these tools are being applied in real world projects and how they are making a difference in practice. I'll start by briefly introducing our speakers in the order they'll be presenting, and then I'll hand it over to them. So first, we'll have Ardavan Bidgoli, PhD, Senior Machine Learning Engineer at Higharc. Ardavan is a computational designer, roboticist, and machine learning researcher. He earned his PhD in computational design from Carnegie Mellon University, where he also taught courses on machine learning and design. Currently, as a senior machine learning engineer at Higharc, Ardavan develops AI-driven tools that automate and enhance the architectural design and construction process. So excited to have you with us, Ardavan, today.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. And then next, we will have Cristiano Coretti, co-founder at CPO at Layout, joining us all the way from Norway. It's pretty late at night. Thanks for joining, Cristiano.
Of course.
So Cristiano is an architect and prop tech innovator with over a decade of experience in architectural design, project management, and lecturing. His international career spans Rome, Istanbul, London, and Oslo, where he has combined design expertise with technology to streamline the architectural process. As co-founder and CPO at Layout, Cristiano focuses on automating floor plan generation to enhance efficiency in real estate design. Thank
you for having me.
Of course. Thanks for joining. And then last but not least, we'll have Dity. Dity Ayalon is the founder and CEO of Arcdesign, joining us from New York. Dity is a licensed architect and entrepreneur with a rich background in both US and international architecture. She's the founder and CEO of ArkDesign.AI, a platform that integrates AI into architectural design to facilitate rapid feasibility studies and schematic planning. So thanks so much. Thanks to three of you for joining. This event will be recorded and posted on our AEC+tech YouTube channel. If you have any questions, so dear audience, if you have any questions from our speakers, please feel free to post it to the chat box on the LinkedIn chat or LinkedIn page or YouTube, and we'll address them when we can. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Ardavan, and we can't wait to hear your story and what you're building and what you're doing.
Okay, so let me just rearrange my screen to make sure that everything is working. Do you see my screen?
Sure, yes.
Awesome. So I'm just going to put it here. First of all, thank you very much, Niklas, for having us. I think it's a great opportunity to introduce some of the work that I've been doing at Higharc and also meeting new people. So I'm just going to start, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I have like around 15 minutes. Am I right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, I'm just going to make sure that I'm staying within that time frame. So hello, everyone. I'm Ardavan Bidgoli. I'm a PhD in computational design from CMU. And right now I'm working at Higharc as a senior machine learning engineer. And I'm part of a small group that we have in the company called Special Projects, which is dedicated to exploring what are the new possibilities that machine learning brings into the home building industry. So I'm going to organize my presentation in three sections. First, I'm going to introduce you to Higharc. Then I'll explain some of the new features that we just recently released. And at the end, just to match the theme of the conversation here, I'm just going to explain some of the ideas in the realm of generative AI in the field that can be explored further by other researchers or other people who are interested. So Higharc is basically working to solve a problem in home building. You know that in design and building process, there is this workflow in which you need to do produce documents, go through the procure, sales and marketing should be aligned with you, and then you have the construction team. But this is not a one-way street. It's actually a kind of like a back and forth process in which different people have different ideas, different words to say, and it means that you need to go all the way back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and get a lot of comments to incorporate their ideas, their point of views, and their edits. But the problem is that we are working with static plans. These are dumb documents that are usually in form of PDF. They're not sometimes searchable. They're not dynamic. If you change something in that workflow, you need to go back all the way to the beginning, edit the file, then manually propagate those changes all the way across the process. And this actually holds us back, costs us time, costs us money. And on top of that, the product data, financial project data, and customer data are not combined together, not connected to each other. So there is a static document, and then there is fragmented data across the platform. So Higharc is trying its best to solve this problem. In order to do so, we have this idea of transforming drawings into live data that can be propagated from the drawing table all the way to the construction document. So if you change something in the workflow based on the feedback from the construction team, from the design team, from the financial people, that you need to adjust something, you can do that, and it's going to automatically propagate all the way across. So your building team is going to be aware of that. It's going to be incorporated in the construction drawings. And also your sales team is going to be aware of that. So it is going to solve that problem of fragmented and old format of data by converting them into live data. Now, how we do it, we have a suite of like different products. The flagship that I like the most is the Studio. You see it on the left side. It is the place that you can do the design and also implementation, and you can introduce different options and different configuration into a house. So basically, it's going to give you a lot of flexibility. And then it brings the data on the cloud in our single source of truth that communicates with the rest of products that we have here. For example, we have estimation tool, just basically give you a list of material, the cost and everything is included here. So as soon as you edit something in Studio, you will immediately get back the price reflection. The construction data is also something that we produce at the end of this pipeline that just actively get updated. And in order to make the whole pipeline complete and having the user and buyer experience properly here, we have sales and marketing interface, which we call it showroom. And then we also have, slightly separated from this, very seamless progress, we have these interior walkthroughs and visualization service. And I would like to ask you to pay attention a little bit more to these two types of visualization that we have here, the walkthroughs and streetscape, because I think there's something really important here that I'm going to get back later on through this presentation. So just pay attention to the level of details we have here and the level of fidelity that we have compared with the original drawing. So this is basically what we do. We make sure that we have a single source of truth that everybody who has a word in the process can actually incorporate into the development of that one, and everybody be on board. Then I joined the company around 2 years ago, and for a period of time, we were thinking about what would be the proper application of machine learning into our pipeline to add value to our user, rather than having something that's nice to have. So we've done a lot of brainstorming. We talked to our clients, we talked to the team that we have in-house, and we came with this idea of what if we can translate these dumb drawings. By say dumb, it's not disrespect. I just want to mention that it is not active. So it's just like a piece of paper or raster drawings to live data that we have in our studio. And our studio uses a lot of explicit AI, the old school rule-based system to convert a room into the whole BIM system. But we wanted to see if it's possible to use machine learning to make it a little bit more easier to go through this process. So going from static drawings into live 3D BIM model. So we started to work on three main features that are just basically loaded with machine learning to do their job. The first one is basically, if you want to implement any plan, is to figure out what is the scale of a drawing. And this is an example. This is the latest version that I just recorded this one around 20 minutes ago for you guys. You can see that we have a complex drawing with a lot of details, and we just hit auto scale. It reads the document, figure out what are the scale. And if I zoom in, you can see that that line is like 20 feet. And I measured that one, and you can see it is 20 feet. And the extra fraction at the end, like half an inch, is just basically the level of detail you can go based on the pixels. It has some limitations into it. If there is a drawing line, it's going to be super accurate. If there's no drawing line, it's dimension line. It can infer the scale from objects, and it even can read the text inside the document and figure out what is the proper scale. But when you have a dimension line, it is 99.9 accurate, and I'm so proud of that one. Then we have auto layout. So basically the whole idea here is, if you have a drawing of a plan, doesn't matter if it's a construction drawing, is it a brochure data, or even a nicely drawn hand drawing, is it possible to convert it into the representation that we have in our flagship software studio? And we work on this one for a while. It is a very time-consuming process because we needed to take care of the data pipeline. We had to label the data, train models, and integrate it in our workflow. And right now, it's capable of doing a task like this one. I'll show you a demo a moment later. But it not only recognizes the boundaries of the rooms with walls, but also figures out what type of room is that. Because, for example, if you want to do some estimation based on this tool, you need to figure out if this room that you are measuring is a kitchen or a bedroom. There are different costs for each one. So this does the job for us. And one part that I'm really, really happy with is that it doesn't need to see any wall between the room. For example, if you have a living room and if you have a dining room and they are like in open plan, it still can recognize and distinguish between them and put the boundary between them. And the last feature that we have here is called auto entity. Just basically looks at the document and I see toilets, I see sinks, I see doors, windows, and it's going to put them in the right place for us. Together, all these three are called auto translate, and it reduces the time that you need to do the initial implementation from maybe hours into seconds. And like any other product that's in the development phase, it is not the perfect solution. Right now, it has some issues. I'm just going to show you this demo here, and just to clarify that this one is not cut. It's just like one single video that you see here. So first, I just scaled this model. And then I actually measured later on. I realized that, for example, the bedroom at the bottom, which is 13 feet and 4 inches, is actually right now in this drawing scaled into 13 inches and 13 feet and 3 inches. So we have like a small error. And you can see that it actually recognizes all those rooms. And there are some small errors, like, for example, the boundary of this garage is not correct. But I can edit that one in a matter of like a fraction of a second. But and also it's using one of our earliest models. So right now we are even more accurate compared with this one. But because we have this studio system behind this, as soon as I give it the boundary of the rooms plus the label of the room, it automatically populates a lot of information about it. Again, pay attention to the fact that, for example, the cafe and gathering rooms are basically one big space, but it recognizes that they are different rooms. And then I use the auto entity to place, for example, toilets, cabinetry, and doors and windows. Again, it recognizes most of this stuff, but there are some errors. For example, the garage door was not there, but it was recognized. It's just a matter of fine-tuning our process. So to be clear, this is a feature that we think has a lot of potentials. First, in quick implementation and allowing people who are not very accustomed to design softwares to actually be part of this conversation. So if you want to have some design sketch at the earliest stages and then just see what would be the price for that, or you want to see like what are the assessment or estimation, you can do it. If you want to just quickly implement something in order to share it with someone else, this is going to give you this option. We had even lower fidelity drawings, like hand drawings, that it was working. The QR code that I had on that slide gives you the link for another video that Michael Bergin, my manager, actually provided a couple of weeks ago. And you can see that even a child drawing is properly working with this workflow. So this is what we are doing. But if you want to think about how generative AI, or to be more specific, generative machine learning at the moment, is going to play what type of role in AEC, I would say there are some new horizons that we can look at. I cannot confirm or deny that if you are working on these topics or not, but these are some of the topics that I see floating around, and I think there is value in each of them. Just to be clear, whatever I showed you recently, like in the previous slides, they are mostly discriminative AI. Means that you have an object, you have one input, and you figure out what is the label associated with that one. When we are talking about generative AI, it means that you are going to generate new material, for example, text and everything. So I think the first level, maybe low-hanging fruit for Gen AI in the AEC tech, is to use it for low fidelity, vibe checking visualizations. The reason that I'm talking about this one is like, if you're selling a house based on the visualization that you have, and you show that there is this doorknob here on the door, and then sell people something else, it's going to be a problem. So if you want to just make visualizations with low fidelity, just to give the people who are seeing it a kind of like a vibe about what's going on, these models are pretty great. Right now, there are some that you can run on different platforms through APIs, do in-painting, style transfer. That's actually really great. I think there is a lot of potential there. And the other thing is taking care of data processing. And basically, if there is a piece of data that's not structured, it's not in the proper format, it's coming, for example, in a printed catalog of this vendor, and you want to bring it into your system or like organize it, these new large language model, and to be honest, large is not doing enough. It's like massive language models with a huge context window that can basically allow you to dump thousands of pages of material into them and then ask them to process it. I think there's a lot of potentials there. Think about it. If you could dump and process design code in an area and then convert it into something, a tabular data set or vectorized data set that allows you to do quick search and whatever you hear recently about RAG systems. And then the one that I think has the most potential here is agent system or agentic systems. Basically, semi-autonomous pipelines that can receive an objective and follow steps using different API calls or like different tools that's available to them in order to accomplish a task. And if I want to give you a really simple example here, let's think about this scenario. You are in the sales team. A buyer comes and says, I want to buy this house, but I don't like the windows. I want them to be matching the standard of like blah, 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 blah. And then you don't know what to do. You need to actually get back, find those windows and like update them in your system. An agentic system, potential agentic system, can actually get this description, like the in the format of language, like what we talk, and then figure out what are the requirements, what are the steps that it should take. Probably it's going to do some online search, figure out which vendor is actually making these windows, and go to their website, pull the data about the manuals and the data sheets, goes through an API call to a 3D model system and just make the 3D asset for that one, make API call to the studio to figure out like how can I update that window with something new. And then from there, the whole pipeline of the studio is going to update the construction drawings and estimation and everything. And at the very same time, it can actually handle, for example, figure out what is the relevant part of these PDF files that it found about installation of these windows. So rather than spending a lot of time with different people and eventually say that, okay, I'm not going to do it, you can have an agentic system to take care of all these steps for you. So I think these three are, and I think they are on the level of complexity I ordered them, are the potential futures of Gen AI in AEC from the point of view of someone who is more inclined towards the technical side. And with that, I'm just going to wrap up and thank you all.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ardavan. Extremely insightful and informative. I really enjoyed. And a quick question for you. So who are the main clients of Higharc right now? So contractors, builders, architects, or
so
all
basically,
of the above?
The business model that we have is to work with builders, and specifically builders who are making above a certain threshold of homes per year, because it makes more sense for them to save money and time and human resources when they are switching into Higharc. It saves a lot of time. The implementation time is, with the tools that we are providing, is quick, but the benefit that comes with it is massive. And it makes sense for people at the moment who have maybe like above 500 homes per year. But in the future, we may actually think about it slightly differently. You see that one of the theme that I mentioned is that it is easier for everyone with different level of experience to work with our product. So there's a potential in the future to go for smaller and maybe smaller home builders or individuals, as you mentioned.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. We'll get back to you with more questions at the end. So, Cristiano, you're next.
First of all, I want to say Ardavan was very interesting, and I really liked the process because I've been also in the space. for some time. So it is quite interesting to see how you can enter in one space and move it. And the idea of when you do a list of materials is also aligned with what we do. So in reality, I will show it, but it is in principle is very similar. It is interesting. Also, the idea of creating the discussion of the auto-scaling, we can talk another time about it, but it is quite an interesting space by itself because, I mean, people are used to do it manually. And then you start to see technology are popping out that actually save a lot of time. So I'm happy to start, I think, yes, thank you, Nick. So here we are Layout, and what we do is we take one of the most time-consuming process, that is the design of, in this case, office space floor plans. So it is a process that, unfortunately, in my life I had to deal with for more than a decade. It's not my favorite space, I would say, because, of course, as an architect, you spend a huge amount of time into doing test fits for people that actually, at the end of the day, maybe they like one option over 10 that you create. And that is like hundreds of hours that you spent in your life doing that. So the process of layout, and the idea of layout was to create a software that allows everyone, literally even people with zero experience, is able to create a design that is actually good. And then you can go and finalizing it with an architect. So the point is, this one is not taking away the position of an architect in the role, but is actually everyone is able to do it, and is full of rules that control the design. But then you can agree with an architect. And compared to, for example, when we talk with competitors, usually like we have one competitor, for example, that it's mostly not providing this kind of direct one-to-one service, because it's actually more a service than a software in our case. So what I can do is, for example, I would like to share the screen and share just how the app works, because I think everything is a lot easier when you see the way it works, because I think it's more valuable. So our app is a very simple web app. You can just create new projects, assign clients, and simply use it as a dashboard where you can pretty much like drag and drop a project. In this case, I'm going to just take a file. You upload it. And this case is a building in Berlin. I actually like it a lot, this building in particular. So you can just jump in. You get information like a gross external area, net internal area immediately. So, and you see that there's nothing now. I can just click and just count 2 to 20 seconds, depending on the type of building. You get your first options. And I didn't put anything here. I didn't put any request because I just wanted to show that actually we can do it in a second. Then what happens? You can open the preferences, pre-fill, and say, let's say I want to have, I don't know, 10 offices, and decide I want to have this one to be 110 square feet. I want to have, I don't know, 10 medium of maybe 220. And you see that also a lot of other information are pre-filled, because actually we provide insights that come from the usage of other people. Like we did a lot of interviews, more than 400 interviews and surveys. So we collected data on what is the habit of people in certain dimension of offices. Advanced, you can change daylight constraints depending on where you are in the world. In this case, we put the presets also for fire regulations. You can change and customize the clearance and every single characteristics of the building. Just click apply, click again, and you get another set of floor plans. So those are generated, and once you're here, you can see the data is rapidly popping in. So you can see the area per employee, the number of workstation, the efficiency, the carbon footprint, because we also care about measuring every single element inside. So while, for example, Ardavan, you were showing the outside, the quantities in the outside, we focus, of course, in what we designed, that is the inside. So it's pretty much the immediate step afterwards. And the pie chart, so in the moment in which I start to move my mouse, you can see that actually every single data is updated, because of course we provide the different evaluation of the space. And then the icons also guide you through the choices. So you have the client that wants to have to spend the least amount of money, the one that wants to have the highest density, lowest carbon footprint, or the most spacious office. And then once you're here, you can, for example, jump on a floor and you get the dimensions. And this is not meant to be perfect, because actually this one was generated in 2 seconds. So of course it will not be perfect, but I can just immediately customize it. I want to have a reception here. I can just go here, reception, and you get a reception. I want this to be, for example, a lounge space. I can go seating, for example, and I can have a lounge. I want to have this one as a small kitchen, for example. I can go like office services, tea point. So you can change very quickly and iterate and of course visualize everything in 3D. So you can jump between 2D, 3D, update, and every change that you make in the app has a direct impact. So every change I make, I change a room, I remove some desk, I can tweak, change. You can move around. You can literally double click exactly as you do on Google Street View. You double click, and you can literally jump inside the floor. You can change the visualization style. You can change the camera. You can have, for example, different ceilings. You can change and tweak on, for example, if you want to do just the schematics. Many people in the call will be architects, and they are used to see like this very cool white schematics that are just help to make people understand what they're doing. You know, like so in a simple way, you can just use this one also for schematic visualization. And once you're here, you can save, you can export in multiple formats, Revit files, share links so that you actually can share on website. We have, for example, brokers that create floors, for example, or they are the design team creating floors. So they share them on the website and are very good, for example, for sharing very quickly information. Also, and also from the cost perspective, we quantify everything that we design. So every single element is quantifiable because it's measured. So how many chairs, how many tables. You can go into the level of detail and of creating a procurement list directly. But of course, I don't need to know, for example, I don't like this part. I want to add, for example, some other details. I want to add some pods. And then I can go back, for example, let's say I'm talking to a client that wants to add more pods within a design. So they can just jump in and simply see that actually the design changed. And for some clients, for example, we activated some services, for example, for AI renders, so they can do live renders directly on the spot. So of course, we don't do it for every client, but there are some specific requests. So in reality, it's a fun way because what you see here, compared to other software, it takes roughly 1 hour to learn. And literally, we train people globally, as we are at the moment in 35 countries. And pretty much like we simply train people to use it, and they learn in literally a matter of minutes. So once you're here, you can export to different formats. So this is pretty much the way the app works. And then going from here, we pretty much generate roughly at the moment every month. So the last 30 days, we did 25 million square feet generated by our clients. And this one represent about, in a normal way, with legacy software, about 10,000 hours of work of poor architects spending millions all their nights pretty much designing. And in layout, this process is done in 96 hours. So there is a saving from our customer of about 80 to 90% of the time. And so we get quite a lot of this kind of interest globally. But it's not only from architects, as I mentioned before, and also Nicknas probably was going to ask me at one point, we don't work only with architects. So architects are quite an important part of our workflow, but we work with developers, working operators globally, brokers. You go from China all the way to the US, Colombia, Brazil, South Africa, Australia. India is one of the biggest markets, for example. So we work in pretty much every space because what matters is actually that what we provide is a solution to a problem that is heartfelt by many people globally. And at the end of the day, we all work for the final users. They want to have an output quick and that is good enough. That is also making them feeling part of the design process, because unfortunately, the users at the end of the day are the ones that are waiting for a solution, while we provide a very quick one for them. So I'm done with the presentation. But I hope it was quick enough to give food for thoughts for everyone here.
Wonderful. That was great. Thanks for the demo. It was very helpful and insightful to, look at the product and how users, the workflow, how they use it. So you mentioned that you work with architects and I believe also developers, right? And contractors. Do you work with contractors
yes,
as well?
Depends. We work with, I mentioned just a few typology of customers, but different countries have different type of contract. We work with contractors, design and build companies, furniture producers we start to work with because, of course, we display furniture. It could be used as a selling tool for furniture, for example. It's one of the many ways in which we can interface clients. At the end of the day, we have different ways in which we can expand, and there are something like 20 different ways in which we can expand. Also different typologies, like we are testing with also different type of spaces, not only like, for example, not only commercial offices, of course. The world is big. It's the important for us is like to reuse buildings to optimize the spaces, and that is what we do best.
Okay, got it. Wonderful. And then you showed us how you can select the region and the country, and you mentioned that you are right now in about 35 countries. So how does it work? Do you put the zoning and the codes and regulations and everything into the product, or it's something like a plugin or an external resource you connect?
So yes, we learn. We talk with people globally, and we are quite lucky that actually people like to talk to us, and we get a lot of people literally gave us a lot of information. So we built the core of what we built is actually something that is very flexible and can adapt to different codes. That is even because funny enough, you go globally. I literally worked all my life in different countries, and the codes sound very different, but at the end of the day, they're very similar. They tend to have common rules. If you go in the US, the difference, for example, for the egress to escape, for escape from fire, is just a different distance. But if you go to the UK, it's just a different amount of feet you need to be far from an exit. You change values so we can adapt, and very quickly, for example, in the next 2 weeks, we deploy other 3 countries, simply like a regulation for other 3 countries, because it's very flexible and allows us to scale very quickly.
Fabulous. Awesome. Thank you, Cristiano. So we'll get back to you with more questions. So Dity, you're next. Tell us about ArkDesign.
Okay. Thank you so much, Niknaz. And I really love AEC+tech, and I think it's such an important platform. So thank you so much for inviting me, and Cristiano and Ardavan. Great presentation, so thank you so much. I learned a lot. So I'm Dity, the founder of ArkDesign.AI, and we're a feasibility tool for real estate developers and architects for multifamily and mixed-use buildings. But the mixed-use buildings are having a residential portion, and that's actually my background, and that's the use case that we're working on. So the problem with multifamily buildings, very initial design, is that it's not optimized. It's very slow. You know, it's a human labor. It can take forever or weeks, and a human can come up with one design option where it's not necessarily optimizing the profitability of a project. And today the process is it's multi-tool. So some architects are still using pen and paper. Some are using CAD. Some are using everyone are using Excels. It's very, very important to Excels to actually know your sellable area, or rentable area, habitable areas. And that's very, very important for a project. It's critical in the early stages. And some are using SketchUp, Revit, there's so many tools. Just for you to understand, anyone can guess the difference between the left and the right schemes. So just by, the right one, the corridor is 20 feet shorter, which makes it profitable in more 100 square feet per floor. It's 11 typical floor, and it's over $2 million net profit. So it's very similar design, and this is the most simple building and design. Think about most buildings are much more complex, and there's so many ways to actually make your project more efficient. So what we're trying to do is something very instant that can give the developer and architect many design options, optimize one, and up to code, same like Cristiano was talking before. So our machine, our product, the zoning of a place is actually the input of the product. And then the software will generate in a very short process the layouts. And the way it's going, it will offer the user where to place it's like templates, where to place a template, and it's considering rear yards and lot coverage and street wall and all the regulation that usually it has to calculate. And then it offers a lot of layouts, first stage for the vertical cores and the circulations area. And then our system knows to one of the inputs for the system is actually the legal light and air walls, where the system can actually place legal rooms, bedrooms, living rooms along those walls. And the system, this is something I'm explaining it more for architects, but it has mandatory conditions. So all the dwelling units must have access to legal light and air. And all of them must have the egress that Cristiano was talking about before. The distance to the escaping the building should be complying. And the vertical cores should be, the stairs, the elevators should be placed correctly. And just to show you some use cases. So this is a multifamily in Bedford, New York City, and that's a 320 unit building. And if we're going, let's go over the floors. So that's the mixed use floor and mixed use and residential floors, the first floor and the second floor. But look at that floor. This is a residential floor, and that's fully automated. All the layouts that you see for the units are fully automated. And the system will not work if you don't explain to the system that you have window walls, like on the right scheme. The left scheme, the system thinks it's all block walls, or in New York City, we call them lot line walls, where you don't have the legal light and air. And so the system will actually refuse to generate, like you see in the left scheme, of the units, whereas in the right scheme, you can immediately see that it's generated the units. That's another project in Broadway, New Jersey, in 136 units. And as you can see, the cellar, first floor, so that's just the schemes, but all the units must have access to the corridor and to the circulation and to the vertical cores. So that's the first stage of the design of a multifamily, and if in your typical floor. And if you don't have that, and as you saw before, it's very critical, the typical floor, the efficiency of that typical floor, because the profitability of a project lie on that. And so if you don't have the right circulation, if you don't have a corridor, or it's not properly laid out with access to all the units, then the system will not automate the design of the of your dwelling units. That's another project that to show you an example that if you don't have access to so those are the floors, but if you don't have access to the vertical core for the egress, the distance and the distance correctly, where the vertical cores are disconnected from the corridor and not properly placed, the system will not generate the design. Now, this is some use cases of Fisher McCoy architects in New York City, and that was done by architect Fariba McCoy herself. And just to show you that this is a job that a client was debating if to buy an air rights or not to buy an air rights, and there's some zoning, city of yes, that allows them for more buildable area. So different schemes, different floors, and she's doing these schemes really fast. She can evaluate 3 different schemes to the client before he's even purchasing the property. And you can see the floor plates of each scheme and the differences, and it's very easy for the clients to start and seeing what they can build. What's really matters for developers is the unit mix, how many studios, 1 bedroom, 2 bedrooms they can place, and then see the total of the whole building. Like you see the tables, gross and net area. That's another building. I think that would be the last building. So that's that's what we're doing, and I'm happy to answer any questions if someone is curious to know anything. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Dity. Thanks for showing us all these case studies and the projects. It's very helpful to see how the platform is helping all these professionals in solving real world problems. So you do work with architects, right? Mainly. Can you tell us about your clients and what the process is like? So I'm curious, where does ArkDesign in the process, in the lifecycle process, help? Is it like the programming phase or later, like in the design development? It's definitely, it's mostly the schematic design phase, right? Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
So, as I said, it's the very, very initial design where a real estate developer is thinking to buy a property, and then even after, and then they would like to see different options and their unit mix, which, you know, and the sellable area or rentable area. But that's very critical on the early stages, and they must know that the design is complying to the regulatory requirements. So we're at this stage that pre-purchase the property, and also after they're purchasing the property, they can go more into details and play with it. Our users are architects, but I have to see that I see more and more engagement by real estate developers. So they actually, because, you know, instead of the clients just bugging them, let's try this option, that option, let's try 5-story, let's try 2 buildings, let's try 20 stories, one, you know. So it's they just refer their clients to the system, and I see their clients are working on the system. We're doing the onboarding to them. So more and more I see actually real estate developers.
Wonderful.
And
I love
architects,
that.
it's together. They work on that together, and they're really sharing the design together, and that's what happens.
Amazing. Great. Thank you, Dity. There's a question for you. So Himanshu Sharma is asking, can ArkDesign help with analyzing the existing building or maybe a project which is under development, and then what would be the input required?
Yes, we can. We created it for ground up. That said, I already seen conversions from, now it's very hot in the US talking about converting offices into residential buildings. So some people are using that for that use case. It wasn't meant to, but yes, it's possible. Depends on the project, actually.
Great. Thank you. Wonderful. So I'll go to questions. So Cristiano, there is a question for you. Carlo Benigni, sorry, Carlo, if I know your name right, is asking, so Cristiano, are the costs up to date and per region? Who is helping you keeping the costs updated?
Thank you for the question, first of all. So the costs at the moment are based on EMEA pricing. So we have our basic structures based on EMEA pricing, but they are completely editable. So we have customers from other countries that simply say, I know how much I pay for 1 foot or 1 meter, depending on the place, of a partition wall or glass partition wall, how much they pay, for example, for square footage or square meters of engineering. So you can do a rough estimation. Some are very accurate, some are less accurate, but at least you get the value in the early stage design that is not possible with traditional ways. It's always impossible. It's always like on a piece of paper, just rough estimates. In this case, we are a lot more accurate on that.
Great, thank you. Okay, so while we are waiting for more questions from audience, I have a question for all of you. So you all talked about like AI, since the topic of our webinar is generative AI. So Ardavan talked about like how AI is being used in the process, and if you can tell us a little more how you've been incorporating AI into your platforms, and how you see the future, like the next year, your platforms, your products, like evolving, maybe using less AI, more AI. So maybe you can start by Ardavan and go then to Cristiano.
Sure. Thanks for the question. I think when I was in my slide, I tried to incorporate some of the ideas that are feasible in the near future, and I think those are the most interesting one that I see at the moment. First of all, it's inevitable. We need to use it because it gives us a lot of advantages over other methods. A good chunk of our work is based on the old school AI, which means rule-based system. And like all the parts that you see in the studio, generally, they are all rules that have been implemented by our engineering team. And each one may take a while. Like, if you want to solve a problem with thickness of the walls that just represent the type of material that you have chosen, it's a form of like a rule-based system, but it takes an engineering team a good chunk of time. However, if you can find a learning-based solution for this one, the way we are using machine learning, it is going to have you some upfront cost, about the data gathering and like implementing your data pipeline, but then you can apply the same logic into so many different problems, and it's going to solve some of the problems that you were not expecting. That's the beauty of machine learning. When I was developing this auto translate project, I had no idea it's going to work on the sketches. I had no idea it's going to work with low fidelity data, but it worked. The first time I saw it, I was super amazed. This is the side effect that I really liked it. But as I mentioned, most of the stuff that I've done was discriminative AI. It wasn't generative. And I think there are, just through this conversation, I can tell like Cristiano can use a lot of generative AI, specifically in the field of LLMs and language models, to automate the process of getting more information out of the countries that they don't even speak the language. Like, if they want to go to, they want to expand their market into Southeast Asia. I cannot personally read any of the documentation, but you might find a language model that can do the translation and extracting the information for you. You still need to do your job and having someone auditing the data for you, but it is going to be like 1/5 or like 1/10 of the time that you would spend on finding these elements and like translating them and doing the rest of the job. I think there is a lot of potential here for transferring the knowledge that we have from the traditional format into something that's searchable, indexable, and specifically vectorized. I would say whoever has proper skill set and like human resource in the team and also have access to high quality data to begin with is 1,000 miles ahead of everyone else. And I would encourage everybody to at least get hands-on with these new features. I don't say that be up to date with it, because right now, if you have asked me a week ago how I would do the audio layout, audio scale that I just demonstrated, I would use another method. Something came out in the span of the
Last
past
week.
week, and right now it's like 2% more accurate. And so be familiar with these old things, figure out what are the potentials there. You don't need to be a software developer to use so many of these. Like, just go to Google AI Studio and just see if you can do something. Just drop the PDF there and ask questions. Then there is this level of implementing AI features, like ML features in the system, that requires more skill, more engineering time, more knowledge of how these things working. But I see a good chunk of work in the next 5 years being addressed with learning-based solutions rather than implementing it one by one based on the rule system.
Definitely. Thank you so much. Oh my God, there are so many questions. I love this level of engagement from our audience. We have 10 more minutes, so we'll try to address all of them.
Well,
But then, Cristiano and Dity, can you just briefly tell us about how you are?
I will. I first I would say definitely you can tell who is more of the field in technical field in this conversation. So I will definitely not be able, and I will never even try to get to that level, even because my teammates will kill me if I try to be too technical. What I can say is 100%. So the goal is, of course, we start with some rules, and you can see that there are a ton of rules to build the baseline. But of course, now with LLMs, and also there are a lot of ways, for example, collecting data and become faster also in generating a better quality in the output. It's also the quality of the data is improving, because using a solution like our, or also other solutions that provide controlled environments, you end up having a better quality data compared to when Ardavan, you were mentioning high quality data is very difficult to find. So even to learn and even just the work you are doing of tracking floor plans and noting everything, good luck with that. I mean, I had to do that a very long time ago, and it's not one of my favorite memories, I would say. It's not. So, but in general, what I can say is that definitely it's going to be just increasing exponentially the amount of things we can do, and we see it on a daily basis. And also implementing some solution like AI renders, for example. We had a client request, can you do this one? We implemented it, I think, in a month, and they simply just type a prompt, they get AI renders directly, and we can develop out of that. So in reality, it is a solution that is just adding up, and each one of us in this call, but also other solutions that are out there, they just speed up the process by tenfold, 100 times fold compared to traditional ways. So depending on what you need, of course.
Yep. Yeah. Thank you, Cristiano. Thanks so much. Dity.
So yeah, like everyone said, it's evolving so fast, and it's very difficult to track. And I think that the boundary between AI and rule-based algorithms is very, like, there's not really a boundary. It's working together. So I cannot say what will be more strong in the next future in our app, but it's interesting to see. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. Thanks a lot. So there are multiple questions here. So I'll start with the one that is for all of you. So Rahul Deshpanda is asking two questions. How does your tool integrate into other ecosystems like Revit, and when and where do you position yourself as a part of the ecosystem? Great question for sure. The second one is there any opportunity for a design service company to use your tool to provide an outcome to clients? So any volunteer to go first?
I don't know.
Sure.
I can be very short and quick. First of all, Rahul, thank you for the question. Very short answer to the first one. We are pretty much like, we start usually, I think all of us, we start with very basic information like a floor plan. And it's something that is pretty much every developer, every architect, every person that is actually ever seen a space will receive. So you start from that plan, you pretty much generate something out of it that is could be residential, if we're talking about here residential, commercial, or anything. And then this solution is exporting in different formats that you can import into Revit. Like in our case, you can export and import into Revit. You can export to CAD if you prefer, like so 2D files, or other 3D formats if you want to use them. And the second answer, is there an opportunity for design services company to use your tool? Absolutely. We work constantly. It's a software. So being a software, it's out there so people can use it. And we tend to use, we have minimum of in terms of quantities of design, because of course this kind of solution have a cost and they perform better at scale, but that is pretty much how you will see most of the software are.
Yeah, I will answer too. So very similar answers. Our app, you can export once you finish the work on the app, which is much easier than the Autodesk solutions. You can just export it to Revit and you get a full B model. So that's A. And B, question two, a lot of architects are working with the system. That's actually, of course, you can use it for services, of design services for clients. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm just going to quickly answer this one. And thank you very much for the question. But our system by itself is a standalone design platform. So we don't need to actually work with any of these packages. And one of the benefits of working with Higharc is that you don't need to have Revit on the side or like any other software subscription in that matter. And but we still need to communicate with other services that builders are using. So for example, if they have ERP for management of their business, they want to make sure that our software talks to that in order to take care of everything. And for those specific scenarios, on a case-by-case, we develop APIs to allow our system to communicate with those specific services. And then when it comes to a design services company, the fact is that we are specifically working with home builders in the United States and Canada. And we are providing them with a solution that just basically solves a problem of going back and forth. So we're not directly working with design firms. We are working with the home builders. But the home builder itself may actually have in-house or like external resources for design and edits of the files, which may have access to our platform through the builders. So it's a slightly different business model that we are following here. And as our product is still under development, it's getting better and better. We need to strategically allocate our resources to address a specific type of part of the market that brings the most value compared to the amount of resources where we are putting it. So maybe in future we can actually cater into different segments of the market, but at the moment we are very much focused on these home builders, which is a huge category in the US, but might be slightly different in other countries.
Wonderful. Thank you. And Ardavan, there are two more questions for you, actually. Shervin is asking how much time you think your users are saving by using Higharc. And Hossein Kamyab is asking if you can explain how you're using AI in the construction phase, or maybe he means construction documentation phase, or maybe he means construction phase.
Okay. So I'm going to answer the second one first because that's the easier one. And thank you for the question. Our contribution to the construction phase is limited to providing those construction document sets. So beyond that point, we are not getting engaged with the, for example, management or like a procure or anything like that. If something gets updated during construction, the construction team can actually update the documents, as built documents, or like, just get back to the pipeline and have everything in the loop. But we are not doing anything in the matter of like, logistics, management, or, anything in that capacity. Then okay. And then the question about the time saving. So we have two type of users. Some of them are in-house implementation team. We have a customer success team that's like working hand in hand with our new customers. This is my understanding based on the conversation that we recently had with them. It can reduce the time for initial implementation from within an hour into a few minutes with the edits. But again, it's a specific requirement for these people. They want to make sure that this phase is the most accurate part of their workflow, because everything beyond that is going to be built on top of this stage. So the more accurate we get at this point, it's going to save them more time down the road. But we have also people who are using this as a kind of like estimation tool for their, cost estimation, or like, doing some feasibility analysis. It saves them a lot of time because they don't want to be 100% accurate. They need to be within the 95 to 100%. And for that, we can actually convert time drastically into a smaller one.
Wonderful. Thanks a lot. So actually, Naman Mehta has another question for you. But Naman, I apologize. We unfortunately don't have enough time. We just have 2 more minutes. So please, dear audience, feel free to get in touch with the speakers and ask your questions. They are all super friendly and nice, that I'm sure will get back to you as soon as they can. And then, yeah, we have 2 more minutes. Is there any closing thoughts or comments you would like to add? Maybe we can start from Dity this time. Dity, Cristiano, and Ardavan.
I just learned so much. So thank you, presenters, and thank you, Niknaz, and thanks for the great questions to everyone.
Yeah, thank you, Cristiano.
Absolutely, very happy to be here, and thank you, Niknaz, for organizing. It was a pleasure from the first time. So it's very pleasure to be here, and of course, it's always interesting to learn. At the end, I think every person that logs in here is to learn something new that they didn't know before, and that is, of course, a great scenario to learn something new when you are here. So thank you a lot for this.
Thanks, Ardavan.
Sorry. Thank you very much. It was very nice conversation. I wish we had time to answer all the questions, but it was always nice seeing you guys and having conversation with the audiences. And thank you for having us, Niknaz.
Perfect. Of course. Thank you for your time and sharing your experience, and the power of your tools and platform is definitely a very exciting time for AEC. And, you are all great with timing, building these powerful platforms. And then, yeah, with this conversation, we are now even more hopeful about the future of building industry and how these tools are, reshaping and, bringing more and more innovation. Thanks again. And so this video will be saved on our YouTube channel. So please feel free to check it out, get in touch with our speakers, and then hope to see you all at the next event, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you all.
Absolutely. Bye, everyone.